And now I'm pleased to welcome our panelists today, beginning with Subhash Poturi. He's been serving as the Vice President of Sales and Operations for Ceipal. Subhash runs Ceipal's Indian offices and is helping the company evolve into a global market leader in the HCM solution space. Introducing Divya now. With over 10 years of experience in human resource management, Divya leads all aspects of HR, including talent acquisition and development and employee engagement and communication at Ceipal. To kick off today's webinar, I'd like to run a few polling questions to get a feel for where our audience is and how we're responding to the COVID-19 crisis. Let me do that now. Thank you. So results of the poll state that 45% of us think that 6 months is when we would fully recover from the COVID-19 disruption, and an equal amount actually think that the disruption would be cleared off in 3 months and 1 year. Launching the second poll right now. Thank you. An overwhelming majority of us think that lack of requirements or jobs from clients is the most affected area for them due to this pandemic, and the equal distribution among all the other three options seems fair and in line with our research. Thank you so much, all. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Sahit. Hi, everybody. My name is Divya, and I head the HR function at Ceipal. So broadly speaking, I'd like to classify the effects of coronavirus into four categories. Those would be physical, mental and emotional, economic uncertainties, and employee productivity. Now let me start by the most obvious one, which is the physical impact. All of us are now working from home, and hence the physical distance between our colleagues and managers has increased drastically. Earlier, if I had a query, I could just walk over to my colleague and get it sorted out. But now for the same thing, I have to kind of ping him, check off his availability, schedule a call, and so on. So a 2-minute thing has now become a 10-minute exercise. So it's like an informal process has now become a semi-formal one. So this thing piles up throughout the day. Also, managing work and family has become a challenge, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this statement. Second one is mental and emotional health. Well, nobody knows for how long this will continue. This uncertainty has definitely taken a toll on employees' mental health. Questions like, will I lose my job? What's my future? Etc. are giving everybody nightmares. In addition to this, the concept of dedicated work hours is no longer applicable. Availability of employees has drastically gone up. Employees are so much struggling to get used to this new style of working now. Plus, family issues are also a factor. So if you have an ailing member in your house, it becomes very difficult for you to basically concentrate and be productive. Let me come to the third one, which is the economic uncertainties. So these days, whichever information medium you go to, be television, social media platforms, all you hear about is recession, people losing jobs, pay cuts, deferred appraisals, etc. This is affecting the morale of employees. All the financial plannings has been thrown out of the window. And everybody is now worried about loan payments, kids' education, etc., etc. Now, when it comes to employee productivity, the fourth point, I would say that all the above uncertainties could lead to dip productivity of employees. And I definitely believe that this is where management and HR leaders need to take charge and help build a winning remote culture. It is only during these times that your company values and ethos are put to test. Companies with strong values and higher trust index will sail through and survive and thrive. Next slide. So let me show you an interesting survey. So Mercer conducted a survey on the effects of coronavirus, and one of the questions was, which of the following remote working challenges have companies encountered? So 25% respondents said that it was managers' ability to oversee work, and 22% said that employees are facing mental issues due to social isolation and mental anxiety. So hence it's very important for us to address these issues to create a resilient workforce. Next slide, please. Okay, now how do you prepare your workforce for this? So I believe the most important tool that management has in its hand is communication. So you got to communicate, communicate, and communicate. Management needs to check in often and consistently as to how are the employees dealing with transitioning to remote working, because it's a new thing. You got to keep checking with your team members on their well-being. You got to communicate about the company's future plans and current standing. Employees should know what the company goals are and how can they contribute to achieving those goals. Now this will give them a sense of ownership plus empowerment. uh, Please encourage your managers to have regular connects with their team members. Talk to them not just about work but about other stuff too. Example is, I have a daily call with my team members, and after finishing with our work updates, we talk about what's happening in our personal lives. We talk about what is it that we plan to cook today. What We talk about our kids. Um, um, or we just discuss as to where we would want to party after everything normalizes. So keep the lines of communication open. Normalize the anxiety. Very, very important. All of us are anxious at this point in time. So you got to let your employees know that they are not alone in this. And all of us are sailing in the same boat. This will calm down their nerves. Be a counselor. So this is the time when leaders will have to don the hat of a counselor. You got to listen to your employees' issues, problems, be it professional or personal. Does not matter. Talk to them in positive language. Use positive words like I understand, or we are in it together, and we will sail through this. So this will help build trust. Recognize and acknowledge. Now, one thing that we need to understand that is work will get impacted. Work will slow down, necessary travel will be cancelled, etc., etc. What we need to do is basically reassure our staff that expectations will shift accordingly, but it's okay. We will get through this. Flexibility. Uh, Giving employees the freedom to how and when they want to work is very, very crucial. So example, these days I start my work very early sometimes, say 7 a.m. I would work for a few hours, take a break, do my household chores, attend to my kids, and start working again. So I know that my manager trusts me, and that is an important factor for me. Encourage virtual fun. So trust me, this goes a long way. So example, we at Ceipal, we make sure that we have some of the other fun activity happening every Friday. So, and trust me, it is during this 1 hour that I see the entire company bonding together, having fun together, including management. You can be innovative in terms of what activities you would want to organize for your people. It could be just a funny quiz or a fun home video competition, etc. In fact, we plan to have a scavenger hunt for our people next week, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. The next point would be about taking feedback. So take feedback from your employees to understand if your initiatives are hitting the right chord. If not, then do not hesitate to change them. Involve your employees in planning and executing some of the HR interventions. Let them feel involved. Next point is fostering a culture of ownership. So one of our core values at Ceipal is accountability and ownership. And this is what we stress on consistently, that you have to be accountable for your actions and work. Micromanagement will not work, and employees will have to start working with very little or no supervision. Next is employee morale. Uh, One thing we need to understand is that, our foremost job at this point in time is to keep the employee morale high, uh, empathize with them, trust them, and understand them. This will help build a resilient workforce, which is the need of the hour. Now, the next slide. How can you leverage technology in all of your initiatives? So we are lucky to be living in the age of technology, and these days you have a lot of option um, uh, to stay virtually connected. So you can make use of Zoom, Google Meet, WhatsApp, etc., etc. Whatever works for you or your team members. Create dashboards to ensure visibility of work. uh, Companies will now have to become even more transparent, process driven, and even more system savvy to win trust. So this is all I wanted to talk about in my presentation. I would just like to end by saying that this is our opportunity to show how we lead in crisis as we navigate the unprecedented journey in the coming weeks and months. I would like to now invite Subhash, who will talk about the impact of coronavirus on business and operations, and what role can leaders play to build a winning culture. Over to you, Subhash.
Thank you, Divya. That was quite useful from a HR perspective, cutting across every department, every team. In fact, my session would have a lot of overlap with what Divya has just said. Just to kick off, hi, this is Subhash. I head the global sales and operations for Ceipal. My agenda for today is to share some insights on how to lead a highly performing virtual team. I'm very sure we have a lot of leaders here today in our webinar. All of them must have distinguished accolades in building teams, leading a very high performing teams. But when it comes to really doing the same thing on a virtual basis, it's a unknown playground for us. So we are currently in our 6th week of remote work, and I put together some of my learnings in leading multiple teams and making sure their performance levels do not drop, right? And to kind of divide it into clear, parameters. I've got 4 parameters, especially on how do you lead a high performing virtual team. The first thing is decentralized leadership. The second thing is clarity of targets, rewards, or expectations. Third thing is building a positive culture built on trust. And the fourth thing that we cannot do without is the infrastructure and tech enablers. All these, if done together, will result in improved productivity even when we are working from home. So let's see what each one of these parameters mean. So the first thing, decentralized leadership, right? Like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. And especially in times of such crisis, it is extremely important that we decentralize the leadership. What does decentralizing leadership mean? It means support your managers, right? Managers who lead your teams, anyone who has any reportees. Trust and empower your managers to take difficult decisions at team level as per the situation. And remember, this is when true leaders emerge. This is how you create leaders for tomorrow. These difficult situations deliver the highest learning. And one thing as a overall leader that you have to make sure is you will be eliminating a lot of insecurity in these managers by letting them know that you have their back no matter what decision they make. So that's something that lies at the core of this whole process of remote working and getting productivity out of it. Second thing, cannot emphasize it more, encourage team-wise communication routines. Having communication is one thing, but then building out a routine of communication is extremely important, because you do not have the same amount of interactions across teams, departments, skip levels, because of the remote work. So managers will have to be extremely diligent about setting up regular communication routines for their team. Maybe it could be a early morning huddle, it could be a midday catch up, or it could be end of the day, kind of a review on what happened. So also these remote communication routines develop a sense of togetherness and trust among teams, which is extremely important, as we'll see going forward in this session. The third one, I think, is the core to any leadership, especially in such situations, which is individualization is key, right? What does that mean? The best managers have always individualized their coaching to the worker. And then when you're doing it remotely, that requires even greater intentionality or motivation, right? That means managers proactively need to ask each team member to describe the conditions under which they perform their best, their concerns about the workflow, and their emotional response to the situation. You cannot expect everyone to work as they were when we were all working in office. So it has to be a much more individual approach to leadership. And what results from an individualization approach is you create a culture of empathy across levels. A manager really understands what his reportees go through. Maybe a VP really understands what are the challenges of a manager. And this is how you create a culture of leadership or a culture of empathy in your team. And I think this is the best possible opportunity to do that. And as with any leadership principle, leading by example is inevitable, and especially leading a remote team is the ultimate test of a leader. This truly differentiates leaders from just managers, and that's what we believe. And that is what we've done here at Ceipal, where we've backed our managers to handle their teams, have regular communication, understand what their reportees are going through, and more importantly, lead by example. Moving on to the next one, a very important one, clarity in expectations. Right? Fulfilling expectations requires equipment and information. So what does clarity in expectations mean? I see it as four different levels of executions that we need to do. The first thing is the big picture. You have to motivate your team by creating context, right? That means help your employees understand not just what their roles are, everyone knows that, but why they matter, how each of them benefits individually from being truly engaged in the team goal overall. Could be a promotion, could be an appraisal, could be an incentive, but they have to understand how working towards a team goal really benefits them. Especially a dispersed team in such situation needs help understanding the company's vision, the purpose of the project, and most importantly, the behind the scenes information they miss by working at a distance from the home office. When you're working remotely, there is a chance that a lot of employees feel cut off or isolated, and this is creating context is how you kind of save them from that. Like Divya said, the second one is my favorite, which is accountability and ownership. Especially during such times, virtual employees need to take more individual responsibilities to meet targets. And so it is extremely critical for the management to set up a process of metrics, a process of targets, tracking those numbers, rewarding those metrics. And also don't make sure the metrics are not just something like number of hours that the employee has worked. Develop metrics that focus on results. And that is where technology comes in really handy for all of us. Technology enablers like CRM systems are inevitable to maintain transparency. Otherwise, we kind of divert towards micromanagement, which results in less ownership. Third one, once you have your targets, metrics, everything set up, you also need information flow. Make sure you regularly apprise your employees of how things are happening, how are they faring compared to others, how is the overall team goal looking like at this point of time, right? And realistic targets need to be set. I lead a very high performing sales team, but we have to understand, we have to be cognizant of the crisis that is going on. If we become adamant saying that no, I want you to go and do the same target that you were doing before, that depresses the sales rep, in fact kind of makes him isolated. So you have to be extremely realistic in the targets that need to be set and be extremely aware and cognizant of what's happening. And definitely when you have these targets, you need to have your rewards and recognition. And every employee should be extremely clear in, if they achieve, say, target A, what is the reward going to be, or what is the recognition that he is going to get. And this is how you drive your employees towards a goal, a target, or a team goal. And that is how you build high performing teams. Make sure you schedule check-ins at key milestones with individual team members. Assess progress, provide feedback and coaching, but do not be afraid to make the required course corrections. Do not be adamant. This is the time to improvise, and that is how we should do it. Moving on to the third thing, which is the most difficult one to do, especially while building, a high-performing team. Positive culture built on trust. This is true for every single team that is out there. As you know, like Peter Drucker said, which I've modified a bit, culture is strategy for breakfast and process for lunch. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a strategy or a process, but culture comes first. And how do you build that positive culture? Communication, like everyone's been telling. It is very important to have your communication sorted out to build trust amongst your team. Some tips that that we've done here at Ceipal, to master employee communication is to set up communication processes. When we were working in office, we never really cared about setting up communication processes. But here you need to take that initiative, no matter how silly it might seem. You agree on basic protocol, such as best ways to contact. How do I reach out to you? Do I ping you? Do I WhatsApp you? Do I send a message? Do I email you? Make sure you have these things figured out. You also need to figure out, because in such situation, determine what type of messages are business critical and need to be responded even during your weekends, your off hours, or even when you're busy with something else, so that those messages are being taken care of. Share regular calendars, action plans with the entire team diligently. You might feel you are spamming someone else by spending so many calendars, but it is important to kind of be extremely transparent in such communications. And the most important thing here, we talk about all these communications that are happening in front of us, but the bigger change when we move to a remote working process is we miss a lot of non-verbal cues that we kind of take when we are working face to face. So like Divya said also, you have to find ways to connect on a personal level, right? It can't just be work. Add a little personality and humor to your communications. Otherwise, it just becomes too much of, drudgy work. You can always do it just if you can put some effort to it. Invite participation or a two-way interaction in all your communication. Otherwise, it gets boring. And most important for a leader is be extremely clear and concise, especially during these times, because you do not have the advantage of talking to them face to face. Be clear and concise in your messages to avoid misunderstandings, because you will not get a chance to clear up that misunderstanding because you're now working remotely, right? So those are some things that we tried. It worked out really well, and that's what I feel like sharing. Second thing, extremely important for me, is building trust, right? Building trust normally itself is difficult. How do you build trust when you're working virtually, right? For me, I see trust as two types. One is cognitive, which is the trust that you build in your team members' heads. You build cognitive trust by being true to your word or any commitment that you make. Lead by example. Demonstrate your capability, so that now the team member understands, okay, this guy is something who is honest, can do some things much better, so let's follow what he says. The second kind of trust is effective, and this is extremely important in such scenario, which is you have to build trust in team members' hearts. How do you do that? You do that by showing empathy, by showing that you care, giving enough attention. They have to feel that, okay, this guy is not just after us just to get his numbers, but he really cares for us. And if you can get these two things done, you will build that positive culture, which is built on trust. Couple of very important tips: be extremely accessible no matter what time it is. Could be just a quick call, could be just a quick message. Be considerate of employee obligations and work commitments. Like all of us have, people have to do their household chores, people have to take care of their kids, so you have to be considerate of their commitments. One good way to kind of do it is set meetings and calls as thoughtfully as your own schedule allows. You know that you want a break for lunch, you know that you want a break to kind of maybe get your kid ready, and that is what your employee might need also. So make sure you check with him before you kind of send those, calendars out there. And fourth and most important thing, encourage feedback and listen thoughtfully, because all of us are new in this scenario, especially us. So it is very important for us to get that feedback and kind of improvise whenever we can. And that is how we build a positive culture. Moving on to the last parameter, all of us know we wouldn't have been here if not for technology. Imagine us being, 100 years back when the last pandemic happened. There was no technology. The whole economy would have collapsed because none of us would have been able to work. Thankfully, it's 2020, and we do have a lot of technology that is assisting us through this crisis. Few pointers, hardware. Make sure you have your, computers and the ability to set up computers and home offices. In our case, we actually moved from 100% on-site to 100% remote overnight. Because we had systems already, set up, we could do that overnight. So it's important that you have or you prepare for these things. And the next 4 points, having the automated software to track, monitor, enable business activities, making sure your network is robust and secure because now all of your employees are working from home, making sure, the maintenance of this, systems is taken care of. And especially when you're struggling for this productivity, you need systems which help you boost your productivity. Very quick example, I know a lot of staffing leaders are present today in this webinar. To give a glimpse how Ceipal kind of helps you in all these 4 points, right? Ceipal is a cloud-based solution, so you do not have to worry about any kind of in-premise installations. It has the best security out there in the market with multi-factor authentication, IP restriction, single sign-on. So you do not have to worry about your employees connecting from outside your office. Zero maintenance because Ceipal takes care of everything. And it's a single platform. It's a fully integrated platform. So your employees will never feel the need to switch across applications. And that is where you get that boost of productivity, right? So I think if you can get these 4 things spot on, in fact, you will see a boost in the productivity of your team more than when they were working from office. So those were my points. Now quickly moving on to a quick survey that we did in our last webinar, where we asked people, a lot of staffing leaders, what are your major fears that you have about remote work? The biggest thing, security. Next one, employee monitoring. The next one, employee productivity, and then lack of business. And now before, as a precursor to the product demo that, my Amar is going to take care of, I want to quickly dwell upon how an end-to-end platform like Ceipal can take care of all these concerns, right? Your hiring needs for especially a staffing company, your sourcing, your screening, your onboarding, which helps you in improving candidate experience. All of those can be done by a platform like Ceipal. Avoid mundane tasks through automation, which results in improved productivity, which was one of the major concerns earlier. Reporting, having defined measurable metrics, and then having a reporting and kind of understanding where you stand, helps in transparency and decision making. And 4th thing that we've all been discussing, communication, keeping employees informed with all relevant information, which boosts engagement. All these 4 major business requirements or concerns for remote work can be addressed by an end-to-end and robust platform like Ceipal.
Thank you all. I think now we will, open the floor for Q&A. Please enter your questions in the chat box below, and we will then ask the relevant panelists. Okay, so we do have a lot of questions coming in. So I think the first question is for Divya. The question goes, do we honor our commitment to our hiring offers? If yes, how do we manage the onboarding?
Okay, so an interesting question. So yes, I'm very proud to say that we do honor our commitments when it comes to the offers. So we had, some candidates were due to join us in the last week of March, but they could not because of the government announcing the lockdown. But we made sure that our recruiters were constantly in touch with them and updating about the happenings. And it is only recently that we e-onboarded them, thanks to Ceipal, that we could successfully e-onboard them and provide a very positive employee experience. So that is what we did.
Okay, okay, okay. So next question, I think this is for you, Amar. How secure is your remote onboarding solution? How can it help me meet regulatory obligations? Amar, this question is for you.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so that was a great question. So a lot of clients, ask the same sort of question. So the security perspective, so we host our applications on Google. So that's the first and foremost thing, right? So whatever the data that we host is residing in US. It's not outside of our country, outside of US especially. And then the security side of it, we encrypt the personal identifiable information, so PII. So we encrypt the whole information and before we store anything. And also we capture all the the locales from where they are accessing. Every activity is recorded on the onboarding portal so that they can see who is accessing the documents, who is signing it, who is downloading it. Everything can be tracked on the system itself, so the users can see what's going on. That way it is really secure, so the information is encrypted as well. So that's really about the security that we are maintaining for the onboarding.
Okay, thank you so much, Amar. And there's another question which is open to all three panelists here. So, is there a system or a process that could help in monitoring employees better? And when does monitoring become too much monitoring?
Subhash, you're on mute.
So, sorry, I was on mute. I'll give you my view of that, and then if both of you have your take, you can do that. I believe always in monitor, but do not micromanage, right? So make sure you have a track of all the activities, all the metrics that are happening, but do not get to a level where you are questioning every single thing that they're doing. Like I said in my presentation, first thing, have a clarity on your targets. If it is a monthly target, if it's a weekly target, or if it's a quarterly target, have scheduled check-ins, which is when you talk about how the progress is happening. But throughout the period, you do monitor, the activities that are happening, and if you find something that is really wrong and you need to course correct, only then jump into it. Otherwise, do not kind of just because you are monitoring them and just because you have all the data in front of you, do not take it as an advantage to cross question every single day or every single thing that they're doing, right? So give them monitor, but also give them the freedom. That's what I believe.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
that answers the question.
Yes. Okay. Amar, this question is for you. How can we manage vendors in Ceipal?
Sure, yeah. So we have a separate module for that, which we call as vendors. So we call it suppliers or whatever it is. So we have a different module itself for managing all your vendors. So we have a mini CRM that I would say. So we manage the leads, we manage the clients, we manage the suppliers, all of them. And we have an integration with a few other products like Discover.org for the lead gen platform. And then that's how they can do it within Ceipal.
Thank you, Amar. And another question for you, Amar. So, how robust is your mobile app?
So the mobile app is sure, yeah. So sorry, Said.
Yeah. What exactly can I do on the app?
Okay, yeah. So the mobile app is fully functional, but you can perform most of the action-based things on mobile apps, right? So sending an email to the applicant, viewing the profile details, calling them, scheduling an interview, making changes to the applicant, status or something, checking your clients, vendors. As a manager, you can check the reports also on Ceipal mobile app. You can send the SMS as long as the system is integrated within SMS providers. The same thing with the VoIP service also. If they have integrated with the VoIP service, they can make phone calls from their mobile app itself. I wouldn't say that you can create the data, like you cannot migrate the data from job boards or create a new applicant, but whatever the information that the team members have already put in the Ceipal system, you should be able to do it, and many of the actions you can perform on Ceipal application, the mobile application.
Okay, all right, all right. Thank you so much for that, Amar. We do have a lot of questions pouring in, but in the interest of time, we will address all of these questions in and follow-up email that we're going to send to everyone who's attended. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of the webinar today, and thank you to our panelists as well. Thank you all. Have a great day ahead.